First story. I gave my husband's late wife's jewelry to my daughter as her birthday present to pass down the family heirloom, and my entitled stepson demanded I give it to him, claiming my daughter isn't worthy of his mom's jewelry. So I grounded him and took away his phone, PC, and consoles. Now my in-laws are harassing me, claiming the jewelry belongs to their grandson. I'm 36 and married to my husband, who's 38. We've been together for about 7 years. He was previously married to his late wife, who passed away 8 years ago when their son, my stepson, was 7. Her name was Jane. I came into the picture about a year after she passed, but my husband and I didn't actually get serious until another year after that. We now have 2 kids together, a daughter who just turned 5 and a toddler son who's 2. My stepson, now 15, lives with us full-time. My in-laws are involved in his life and have always been very protective of him, especially his grandmother, who makes it no secret that she still views Jane as her real daughter-in-law and is just cordial with me for the sake of family. There's always been tension between my stepson and me, but I've tried really hard to respect his boundaries. I've never pushed the mum role on him. I support him, go to his school events, help with homework, and do all the day-to-day parenting, but I've always let him lead how much of a relationship he wanted with me emotionally. We've had moments where we got along okay, but anytime his mum is brought up or anything to do with the past comes up, it's like walking on eggshells. Over the years, my husband has slowly given my stepson things that belonged to Jane: photos, letters, and keepsakes she had put aside for him. A couple of years ago, we gave him a box that had a bunch of her things she specifically left for him before she died. He was very emotional about it, and understandably so. We never touched anything else that wasn't clearly marked for him. That included some jewelry, nothing extravagant. But there were a few pieces Jane wore a lot, like a necklace, some bracelets, and a couple of rings. These were left with my husband, but Jane hadn't specified who they were for. They'd just been sitting in a box in our bedroom since before I even met him. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. Our daughter turned 5. She's very into dressing up lately. She loves sparkly things and shiny bracelets. And she's obsessed with this little plastic jewelry set she got for Christmas. Around that time, I was looking through our closet for something unrelated and came across Jane's jewelry again. I remembered it and mentioned to my husband that maybe we could give a piece or two to our daughter as part of her birthday gift, not as a toy, but something real she could grow up with. I thought it might be a nice way of passing something down and keeping some family history alive. I even said she should be told they belonged to his first wife, so she understands the meaning. He was hesitant at first. He said it felt weird, and he wasn't sure how his son would react. I told him I understood, but that it wasn't like we were taking anything from him. He already had the things specifically left for him. This was just jewelry that had sentimental value, yes, but wasn't assigned to anyone. Eventually, he agreed and picked out a necklace and a couple of bracelets that he remembered Jane wearing on special occasions. We put them in a nice box and gave them to our daughter for her birthday, along with her other gifts. She loved them. She didn't fully grasp the backstory, but we explained they were special and used to belong to someone who was very loved by her daddy and her brother. She treated them carefully and even asked before wearing them. She wore the necklace to dinner that night and was really proud of it. The problem started when my stepson saw her wearing them. The moment he noticed, his entire face changed. At first, he was just staring, kind of frozen. Then he asked where she got them, and when I told him we'd given them to her as a birthday gift, he just walked away without saying anything. Over the next few days, he started giving both of us the cold shoulder, especially his dad. We tried to talk to him about it calmly. My husband sat him down and said that the jewelry wasn't something his mum had specifically left behind for him, and that he still had everything she intended for him. That we'd wanted to give something special to his sister, and we thought it would be meaningful. But he wasn't hearing any of it. He said it was a betrayal. That those were his mum's things, and that giving them to someone else's kid was disgusting. He said our daughter didn't even know who his mum was, and that she had no right wearing her jewelry like it was a costume. I tried stepping in gently, saying we understood it was emotional, but that his sister was his family too, and this wasn't about replacing anyone. But he just walked out of the room mid-conversation. Over the next 2 weeks, the mood in the house was tense. I could tell he was simmering, and to be honest, I started getting frustrated too. I felt like we were being painted as bad people for doing something we thought was kind and thoughtful. I understand grief, and I know he still misses his mum, but I also felt like he was refusing to acknowledge that his siblings existed or had any place in their dad's life that included the past. Then, one afternoon, everything exploded. I was in the kitchen, and heard our daughter screaming from her room. I ran upstairs and found her crying, her necklace missing, and her jewelry box open and half empty. My stepson was standing there with the pieces in his hand. He had taken the necklace right off her and taken the bracelets out of the box. I was furious. I asked him what he was doing, and he said flat out, "She doesn't deserve these. Over my dead body, will she ever wear my mum's stuff again?" I told him to hand them over immediately, and he said no, that he was taking back what was his. My husband came in right behind me and told him he was out of line. He said the jewelry wasn't his, that he had no right to take it, and that he was upsetting his little sister for no reason. That's when things really blew up. He started yelling at both of us, saying we were disrespecting his mum's memory, that I had no right giving her jewelry away like I was some kind of replacement wife. He told our daughter she wasn't special enough to even look at the jewelry, let alone wear it. At that point, I'd had enough. I told him to go to his room, and when he tried to argue, I raised my voice and said he was acting selfish and cruel. He screamed at me, called me a BTCH, and stormed off. My husband was frozen for a second. He went after him and told him flatly, "You don't speak to her like that, ever." But honestly, the damage was already done. Our daughter was still crying, asking why her brother hated her. I sat with her and reassured her that she'd done nothing wrong. She asked if she could still keep the jewelry. I told her yes, that they were hers, and that we gave them to her because she's loved, not because anyone is being replaced. Later that evening, I told my husband I was grounding his son. He agreed. We took away his phone, computer access, and gaming privileges. He was allowed out of his room for meals and schoolwork, but that was it. He stayed quiet most of the time, but the resentment in his eyes was constant. A couple of days later, I found out he'd called his grandparents behind our backs. They showed up at the house unannounced and immediately cornered me. His mother, my mill, was livid. She said I had some nerve giving her daughter-in-law's jewelry to a child who wasn't even Jane's blood. She called it disgusting and told me I had no right to make those decisions. I told her plainly, the jewelry was never left to anyone specifically. Her grandson already received everything his mum wanted him to have. What we gave our daughter wasn't taken from him. I said he had every right to be emotional, but not to take it out on a 5-year-old or to treat his siblings like they don't matter. She didn't care. She said I was a cruel witch, that I was poisoning her grandson's home, and that she always knew I didn't belong in their family. She told me to stay away from her grandson and never speak to her again. My Phil stood by her, silent, but clearly agreeing. My husband finally stepped in and told his parents to leave. Said I had done nothing wrong, and they were out of line. That's when his mom turned to him and said she was ashamed of him for choosing this woman over his real family. They left without another word, just some cold glares in my direction. After that, my stepson doubled down. He threw their words right back at me, said I was a nobody, that I had no say in anything that had to do with his mum, and that he was done talking to me. We tried to enforce boundaries and consequences, but the anger wasn't fading. He started ignoring my daughter entirely. If she tried to speak to him, he'd stare at her like she was dirt. He told my husband behind my back that she would never be family to him. When my husband confronted him, he said it wasn't fair that some kid was getting pieces of his mum while he was just supposed to sit back and watch. We're now at a point where everything feels fractured. My husband supports me, but I can tell he's tired. He's grieving the fallout. I'm angry not because my stepson is hurting, but because of how he's handling it. There's a line between grief and cruelty. He crossed it when he hurt his little sister. He crossed it again when he called me out of my name and dragged the grandparents into it. At the same time, I get that he's 15, and maybe this was just the final straw after years of buried grief and resentment. But I'm also parenting 2 other kids in this house, and I can't allow one of them to terrorize the others because he refuses to accept that life moved forward. I don't want to be the villain in his story. I didn't try to take his mother's place. I've stayed in my lane for years. But the way everyone, especially his grandparents, acted like my daughter was some outsider for even touching a piece of family history made me feel sick. My daughter is part of this family too. She's not Jane's daughter, no. But she's her father's. And she has a right to be loved, to receive something meaningful from her dad's past, and to feel included, not treated like she's an intruder in her own home. I don't know how we move forward. The jewelry is locked away now, because I don't trust what my stepson might do again. My daughter hasn't asked about it in a few days, but when she sees her brother now, she clings to me. That part hurts the most. My husband has considered therapy again for his son, He had some sessions when he was younger, but my mill is pushing to have him stay with them for a while. I know it's just her way of removing me from the equation. My husband won't allow it, but it's more tension on top of everything else. So yeah, Reddit. Am I aita for agreeing to give my daughter some of my husband's late wife's jewelry and grounding my stepson after his reaction? Comments. Comment 1. Why Tia, and honestly, so is your husband. This kid lost his mother. That's not a minor thing. That's the biggest loss a child can experience. And you gave away something that emotionally tied him to her. Not just some trinket jewelry she wore. You didn't even talk to him. Didn't offer, didn't ask, just handed it to the 5-year-old, who's the child of the new family. How do you think that reads to a grieving teenager? You keep saying, it wasn't technically left to him, like that makes it morally okay. He watched her wear those. That's part of how he remembers her. Now he sees his half-sister parading around in it like dress up. And when he gets upset, he's labeled selfish and punished. This isn't about objects. It's about erasure. It's about a kid watching his last tangible link to his mother get handed to someone else and being told to get over it. I'm not saying he was right to lash out the way he did, but the adults in this situation set him up to feel replaced. You call it passing something down. He sees it as you discarding his mom to make space for your daughter. You minimized his pain, and now you're shocked he exploded. You all owe him an apology and some serious therapy. He's not a brat, he's a grieving kid being told his grief is inconvenient. Comment 2. There's also this unspoken assumption in your post that because you're raising your stepkid, you're entitled to decide how his dead mom's memory is distributed. You're not. You're a step-parent. Important, yes, but not a stand-in for his mom, and definitely not the curator of her legacy. That jewelry wasn't yours to pass on. And the way your husband allowed this tells me a lot. He should have protected that memory for his son. That was a failing on his part too. One more thing. Your daughter didn't ask for that jewelry. You and your husband made that decision unilaterally. So when people say, your daughter didn't deserve that reaction, that's true, but she shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. You escalated things, and now your stepson feels betrayed by every adult in his life. Hope it was worth it for the birthday photo OP. Comment 3. I'm going to take a different tone here. I don't think you're a monster, but I do think you really messed up. The way you're framing this suggests you see your stepson's reaction as over the top, but I think you deeply underestimated the symbolic weight of what you did. Think of it this way. Your daughter didn't inherit something from her family. She was gifted part of someone else's family story. Your stepson saw those pieces not just as jewelry, but as physical extensions of his mother. And he had no say in what happened to them. That's what's at the core of this. Powerlessness. Instead of using the jewelry as a bonding moment, you used it as a surprise. And I get the intent: create tradition, show connection, but the execution was off. If you'd approached your stepson and said, would it be okay if your sister had something small of your mom's? We want her to understand who Jane was. Maybe he still would have said no. But maybe he would have felt included. Instead, he felt replaced. Also, grounding him for reacting to that. I don't know. Did he cross a line? Yes. But this should have been a sit-down talk, not a punishment. You had a chance to parent through pain, and you opted to correct behavior instead of hearing the cause. You're not evil, but this was handled badly. Apologize. Try again. Show him you see the real hurt underneath the anger. You might be surprised how much that softens things. Update. Hi Reddit, I'm back. I posted about 2 weeks ago about the jewelry situation with my stepson, my daughter, and my husband. I read every single comment. I've been sitting with a lot of them. Some of them were brutal, but honestly, I needed that reality check. I know some people think Reddit can be harsh for sport, but reading the perspectives of people who lost parents young and how deeply they connected to objects helped me understand why this whole thing blew up the way it did. The number one thing people said was that we blindsided my stepson. That we should have involved him before ever giving my daughter something that belonged to his mom. And you're right. We absolutely should have. My husband and I thought we were doing something kind and meaningful. But looking at it now, it feels naive and selfish. We decided something for him, without him, about the single most important person in his life. Since my original post, things have escalated. After the fight where my stepson took the jewelry off my daughter, the tension in the house became unbearable. My daughter started acting different. She started refusing to play upstairs alone, clinging to me at bedtime, and even asked me if she was bad for wearing the necklace. That crushed me. I kept telling her she did nothing wrong, but she's 5. She doesn't fully understand why her brother suddenly hates her. She went from being excited about her birthday gift to not even wanting to look at the jewelry anymore. I ended up locking it away because she didn't want it out. Meanwhile, my stepson shut down completely. He refused to speak to me at all. He barely spoke to his dad. He started calling his grandparents every night from the house phone because his phone privileges were taken away. Then the in-laws started calling my husband, threatening to take action if we didn't return their daughter-in-law's belongings to their grandson. They even mentioned legal channels. I spoke to a lawyer friend of mine who said they don't really have a case, because Jane's estate passed to my husband automatically, and what wasn't specifically bequeathed to the son legally belongs to my husband. But hearing the words legal action was still terrifying. My in-laws are relentless when they think they're right. They started emailing my husband, accusing me of theft, emotional abuse, and trying to erase Jane from her son's life. Inside the house, my husband and I started fighting behind closed doors. He defended me in front of his parents, but then at night he'd say things like, "Maybe we shouldn't have given her the jewelry," or "You should have known he'd react badly." At first it was just little comments, but they added up. I started to feel like he was quietly blaming me for all of this, even though the decision was his too. He was the one who picked the pieces for our daughter. He was the one who said yes to my idea. But now, because I was the one who physically gave the box to her on her birthday, somehow it's my fault in his parents' eyes, and I can feel him letting me take the heat. It's infuriating. At the same time, I do see where people were right. We messed up. I don't think my stepson handled his anger well. He hurt my daughter. He screamed at me, and he called me names. But he's 15, and he's grieving, and we were the adults. We failed to protect him from feeling blindsided. After a week of stalemate, my husband finally told his parents that our stepson could stay with them for a while. I didn't fight it. The truth is, I was relieved. The atmosphere in the house had become toxic. My daughter was scared of her brother. I was resentful of him. I didn't want to be in the same room as him anymore. And every time my husband brought up his parents, my stomach would knot. So now he's living with them until things cool down. I don't know how long that means. My husband is still visiting him twice a week. I haven't spoken to him since he left. I don't think he'd pick up if I tried. We're starting family therapy next week. My husband, me, and our daughter and my stepson will have sessions separately at first. I don't even know if he'll agree to sit in the same room as me anytime soon. I've considered just giving the jewelry to him outright. I know a lot of commenters told me to do that immediately. I haven't yet. Partly because I don't want to teach my daughter that if someone yells enough, they get their way, and partly because it makes me so angry to think about how this all spiraled over things that weren't even mine or his to begin with. But the truth is, the jewelry's not worth what it's done to this family. Right now it's locked in a safe in our closet. My daughter hasn't asked for it back. She's slowly going back to her usual self without her brother here. But she still asks when he's coming home, and if he's mad at her. I don't even know how to answer that. I'm tired. I'm tired of my in-laws, tired of my husband's passive blame, and tired of trying to navigate this minefield of grief and loyalty and family politics. I feel like I tried to do something meaningful, and instead ended up being cast as the villain, not just by his parents, but by my own husband and a huge chunk of the internet. I don't know if I'm the arsehole. I know I handled this wrong. But I also know I've been raising this boy for 7 years. I've taken him to school, fed him, helped with homework, and stayed up when he was sick. And now it feels like all of that doesn't matter because I mishandled one decision. I'm human. I made a mistake. That's where we're at now. My stepson's with his grandparents. My daughter's scared of her brother. My husband's still caught in the middle, and the jewelry is in a box collecting dust. I just wanted to update because a lot of people asked me to. And because, honestly, I needed to vent. This has been the ugliest fight our family has ever had. I'm hoping therapy helps. I'm hoping my stepson can eventually forgive me. But right now, I just feel resentment towards him, towards my husband, towards his parents, and towards myself for letting some stupid jewelry blow up my family. That's the update. Comments. Comment 1. This update honestly broke my heart more than the original post. Your 5-year-old didn't ask for any of this, and she's the one who's probably going to carry the scars from it. She went from birthday girl excited about sparkly jewelry to kid hiding in her own house afraid of her brother in 2 weeks. That's not normal, and that's not okay. You're angry at your stepson and at your in-laws, which is fair. But don't gloss over the fact that your daughter was collateral damage here. The adults in the room decided to give her something loaded with emotional weight. Then, when it exploded, she got caught in the crossfire. That's not just a mistake, that's a parenting failure. You're right to lock the jewelry away. But you also need to get your daughter into therapy too. She's 5. But kids pick up on resentment and fear more than people think. You don't want this to set the tone for her whole relationship with her brother. Comment 2. You're exhausted and resentful, and it shows in this update. And honestly, you're allowed to be. Your in-laws are threatening legal action they probably can't even take. Your husband is playing both sides. Your stepson's trauma is being used as a weapon against you. Anyone would be drained. That said, you need to start thinking like an adult who's protecting her household. If the jewelry isn't worth it, give it back. Or better yet, put it in a safe deposit box and have your husband write a notarized note saying it's for his son at 18. This takes the fight off your plate. Next, insist on family therapy with a neutral third party. Not just for the kid, but for you and your husband. Because right now you're fighting a war on 3 fronts: kid, husband, in-laws with no plan. And if the in-laws keep hinting at legal action or custody, get your own lawyer, not a friend. Paper trail everything. You're tired because you're trying to be fair while everyone else plays dirty. Stop. Make boundaries, stick to them, and let your husband handle his own family. You can't fix everyone's grief, but you can keep it from eating you alive. Second story. My girlfriend of 6 months found out that her attractive coworker is my ex. She tore up the expensive sweater I got from my ex, lied to me, and started harassing her. I really loved this sweater. It was smart casual with a striped pattern from a fancy Italian brand. I could wear it to work as well as for an evening out, and I really liked how I looked in it. I'm really pissed to lose it. Background on the relationships. My girlfriend is Hannah. We met because we live on the same street, and we used to have our pre-work morning coffee at the same cafe. Our coffee meetups slowly turned into dates, and we've officially been a couple for about 6 months. I like her. She's sweet and smart and pretty. But we are taking it slow since both of us were coming off of terrible breakups. She broke up with her fellow of 10 years. Their relationship ended in a hail of fights and petty behavior, which tore apart their friends and pissed off their families. The reasons were never clear to me. All Hannah said was that all their relationship problems came up at the same time and everything unraveled. My breakup was kind of different. Haley and I never officially dated, but we had been friends for a very long time. We slept together once when we were both between relationships, but we were both sure that we worked better as friends. 2 years back, Haley broke up from a bad relationship, and we got into a semi-official FWB situation. That is, we would still hang out and talk as friends, but once in a while we'd also have some form of physical intimacy. Both of us also got really busy with our careers, so we never really had any other romantic relationships. Around Christmas 2015, Haley brought up our relationship and told me that she was falling for me as more than a friend and wanted to explore a relationship with me. I didn't. I had my own reasons, mainly that we had some fundamentally mismatched views on life that would make a relationship really hard. We worked really well as friends, and she was really important to my life, and I didn't want to jeopardize that by getting into a relationship. Well, I still lost that friendship. She essentially went no contact, and no matter how much I hated it, I couldn't really say much since it was a reasonable thing for her to do for her own sake. But it really hurt. Losing her as a friend hurt way more than any breakup I've ever had, and it took me a while to find my footing. Hannah knew the basic details about mine and Haley's relationship and wasn't too curious about it. She also knew that I had a few things that Haley had given me, but never raised an issue about it, especially since she had a bunch of gifts from her ex as well. This Christmas, I accompanied Hannah to her office Christmas party. To my surprise, Haley was also there. Turns out that she started working there recently in a different department from Hannah's. We exchanged pleasantries and tried some small talk, but it was awkward and lasted maybe 3 minutes, most of which was silence. Then Haley left early, and I didn't see her again. While I talked to Haley, Hannah was somewhere else, and when she came back, I told her about it. She had never met her before big company, but her curiosity was piqued. In any case, I got into a jovial party mood, and everything went back to normal. Until last Friday. When I was at work, I got a flurry of texts from Hannah basically stating that she finally met Haley. Now you should know that Haley is really attractive, like modeling offers since she was 16 attractive. Plus her job also means that she's always dressed to kill, event manager for high-end corporate parties. Well, seeing Haley did a number on Hannah, she didn't come out and say it, but she suddenly got extremely curious about Haley as well as our relationship, with a lot of questions about everything. She even specifically mentioned the sweater, saying, "No wonder you love that sweater so much." I tried my best to assuage her insecurities. I told her that there was absolutely nothing between Haley and me. We haven't even talked to each other in more than a year, except for 3 awkward minutes during that party. I also told her that I really liked her and could see our relationship going pretty far. But I was also low-key annoyed with the whole conversation. Anyways, Hannah slept over Saturday night, and I thought we had gotten somewhat past this momentary burst of jealousy. But then she left early on Sunday morning, saying something had come up even though we had plans to spend the day together. In the evening, I was going through my laundry, and I saw the sweater with a big hole in the armpit, like someone had tried to literally pull it apart with their bare hands. Now it's obvious that it was Hannah's doing. I had worn that sweater on Thursday, and when I put it aside for dry cleaning, it was fine. No one else had come to my flat since then. I texted her asking about it directly. It may not have been the best tactic, but I was incredibly pissed off. She was on the defensive from the get-go, denying that she did it, coming up with various ways that could have happened, and continuously telling me that I was an arsehole for thinking that she was crazy like that. This morning she texted me all pissed and curt, and told me that yes, the provenance of the sweater bothered her, but she didn't do it. I think I need to dump her. But I've been second-guessing myself a fair bit as well. Hannah has always been really sweet, and is very caring and sensitive about my feelings. I really like her, and we don't have any fundamental differences. We can genuinely have a good, fulfilling relationship. And maybe this ripping up a sweater thing was just a momentary lapse of judgment, which she is extremely embarrassed about, and hence her defensiveness. What do you think? TLDR, GF of 6 months, ripped up my favorite sweater, which I got from an ex. Ex is GF's colleague, and she just met her, leading to a bout of questions and some insecurities. She denies ripping up the sweater. I'm second-guessing whether it's a break-upable offense or not. Comments. Comment 1. Not wanting to date someone anymore is all you need in order to break up. I think most people would consider willful destruction of your property enough to not want to date someone any longer. Comment 2. I can't imagine dating someone who would fly into a jealous rage and destroy my property because an old ex was attractive. That's really insane. Comment 3. My ex, who I have a 5-year-long restraining order against, destroyed a dozen items of my clothing by tearing holes in them in a jealous rage. Only batch TFing crazy arseholes do this. Don't date anyone who does. Comment 4. If she ripped a hole in your sweater because you used to date an attractive woman, I'm guessing the breakup won't be pleasant. Update. Since it's been 10 days, and the matter has been settled in a satisfactory manner, I thought I'd update you guys as to the final conclusion. I've had a few pints, so forgive the disjointedness. Facts. It was a Loro Piana jumper. It's not repairable, I asked around. My evidence for knowing that Hannah was the culprit is circumstantial, but compelling. Firstly, after I put it in the pile meant for dry cleaning, it was covered by a bunch of other stuff. When I discovered its tattered remains, it was bunched up in a ball on top of the pile. Secondly, the tear was 8 inches/20 centimeters long, something I would have noticed quite comfortably if it had happened while I was wearing it, or while I put it in the laundry pile. Thirdly, while it was torn, it was also stretched completely out of shape. The stretching would be consistent with someone grabbing 2 sides of it and pulling it apart. But most convincingly, when I confronted Hannah aggressively, I admit, she started telling me about all the alternative ways in which the damage could have happened with exact knowledge of the type of damage that my poor jumper had suffered. I had never mentioned the type of damage, namely that it was in the armpit area along the seam along with the stretching. To the lady who sent me a very heartfelt and foul-mouthed rant/plea, yes, I think people have every right to feel insecure and inadequate. Yes, people have every right to act like an idiot. Yes, I have done stupid things due to my lack of control over my emotions. And yes, I'm weird materialistic enough to love a jumper more than the woman I'm dating. But no, I don't think she deserves my forgiveness for this slip-up. And that is because it wasn't the insecurity. It wasn't the lack of control, and it wasn't the materialism that made me want to break up. It was the lying and deceitful manner in which she behaved afterwards. It was the insanely manipulative way in which she turned herself into the victim and demanded an apology from me. And yeah, the cursing directed at me didn't help. The story is fairly dramatic, as well as anticlimactic. Her curt behavior after my ill-fated confrontation lasted for 2 days. Then she called about 40 times to beg me for forgiveness. Even though I avoided the calls, I did hear the VMs, and my empathy was piqued. She also pretty much admitted to her guilt in some of those VMs. But then I also came to know that preceding those calls, she had lashed out towards Haley, my ex-friend/FWB at their workplace, and that it was ugly as well as had the potential to spiral negatively for her career. That made me feel really bad for Haley. She didn't deserve to be dragged into drama that she played no active role in. The anticlimactic part is that I didn't even have to break up with Hannah. She has essentially moved in with her parents up north. She sent me a message through a mutual acquaintance, stating that she realizes that she has quite a few issues she needs to handle from her breakup with her ex-fiancé, and our decision to date was pretty much doomed from the start. I wished her the best of luck with her journey. Another mutual acquaintance approached me, this time one between me and Haley. She sent word apologizing for her role in my relationship meltdown. I told her that there was nothing to apologize for on her end. I also asked for her forgiveness for inadvertently causing workplace dramatics. And that's that. Thank you for your words and brickbats. It was enlightening, entertaining, and infuriating. Interesting combination for sure. But then that's why one turns to random internet strangers for advice. TLDR, it was Hannah. We broke up. She's going to work on herself. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I looked at what Loro Piana charges for stuff. Well, that's an expensive jumper. Comment 2. I did not recognize that brand. I had to look it up. Apparently, I don't recognize it because I'm a goddamn peasant. Holy SHT. Comment 3. Yeah, I didn't realize the typical Loro Piana price tag is a 4-figure sum. Eek. Comment 4. Geez. Even the cheaper ones are more than I paid for my car. To be fair, it's a SHTTY car, but you can't drive a sweater. This comment explains why the sweaters are so expensive. I think, therefore I think. For anyone wondering why it's so expensive. Still, some manufacturers are known for their regular use of Mongolian cashmere, like Loro Piana. Loro Piana is one of the highest-end cashmere producers in the world, Roch says. They have their own herds that they control. They're completely in charge of that environment, and the animals are being treated so well the goats are really thriving. You can't just bring the goats to Italy, where Loro Piana is based, because they won't produce the same kind of cashmere as they do in Inner Mongolia, where the climate and environment are perfectly suitable for the best cashmere. Many comments talked about price at the time this was originally posted. Comment 5. Please, the first one I clicked on was $2,695. I was like, damn. Then I clicked on another, and it was over $9,000. Who are these people buying $9,000 jumpers? Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.